So welcome to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the GCSE Maths paper of November 2022 Foundation Paper 2, which is a calculator paper. Now as always I'll include a question breakdown so you can see which question refers to which topic, and I'll also include a contents to all the videos on the channel, so if there is a particular topic that you need to go back and revise, they'll be easily accessible for you. Now before we get started working through this November 2022 Foundation Paper 2, which is a calculator paper, just a brief reminder to say that if you're wanting a question breakdown, then this is going to be accessible by looking in the description so you can see which topic relates to each question. This is particularly useful if you're struggling on a particular question so you can go back and revise that particular topic. So getting started, looking at question 1, it says circle the number that is a multiple of 25. Now a multiple is basically a number that appears in the numbers times table. So we're looking for a number that appears in the 25 times table. Now to help, you might want to write down the 25 times table. Obviously each of these are all double digits, so you won't have to go far, so you only have to go maximum writing 4 numbers. But the correct answer is 75, because 25 times 3 is 75. Moving on to question 2, it says circle the value of the digit 3 in the number 10.23. Now here we've got the 0, which represents a 1, the 2, which represents a tenth, and the 3 that represents 100th. So we're looking for 3 times 100th, which is 3 100ths. For question 3, it says circle the lowest temperature, and so here the lowest temperature is going to be -5 degrees. Then moving on to question 4, it says circle the letter of the shape with that has exactly 1 line of symmetry. So here for Q we've got 2 lines of symmetry, which are these 2 here. With a circle there is an infinite number of lines of symmetry. For S there are 0 lines of symmetry, so the correct answer is going to be P, where the line of symmetry is drawn, so I'm just going to circle P. For question 5a, it says simplify fully d times d. So for this, all we need to do is just recognize that we write this with indices, so it's going to be d squared. Again, simplify fully n over n. Well, n over n is like this, and when you're dividing this, the numerator and the denominator are the same, then that's just going to equal 1. Then for 5c, simplify fully, so we've got 1/3 times 6d. Well, if I write the question out, and then I convert the 6d into a fraction, because we like multiplying fractions with fractions, and then the rules of multiplying fractions is we multiply the 2 denominators together, so we get 1 times 6t, which is 6t, 3 times 1, which is 3, and then the 6 and the 3 cancel out, so we can divide the 6 by 3, which is 2, leaving us with a final answer of 2t. Moving on to question 6, it says write down a number in the box to make the calculation correct. So 16 divided by something, so as you can see we've moved the decimal place, the point rather, 1, 2, 3. So then we're going to divide by 1 with 3 zeros. Then moving on to question 6b, it says write down a number in the box to make the calculation correct. So the first thing we need to do here is add these 2 numbers up, in which we get 22.3, and then to work out the missing number we just need to do 27 take away 22.3. Remember, this is a calculator paper, so we can use our calculator. So 27 take away 22.3 gives me an answer of 4.7. Then moving on to question 6c, it says write a fraction in the box to make the calculation correct. So for this particular question we need to do 1/8 divided by a half, and again if I open up my calculator and I can show you how to do this. Now you need to make sure that whenever you're entering fractions you are using the fraction button on your calculator. So I set up the fraction, which is not working, so let me just get that up, and there we go. So we've got 1/8 and scroll across divided by fraction 1. If you wanted to, you could have written 0.5, that's absolutely fine, your calculator would recognise it, so we get an answer of 1/4. Then for D, it says write down the same number in both boxes to make the calculation correct. So 361 is a square number, so what we need to do here is basically square root. So if I square root 361 equals, we get 19. Now another way of looking at this particular question is if I imagine that the empty boxes were x and x, well, let's use a different letter because I'm going to use a multiplication. So if let's say it was a times a, then this would be a squared. So a squared equals 361. So therefore a is going to equal the square root of 361, which is why I square rooted it, which is 19. Alternately, for this particular question, you could also write minus 19 as well. So you can either write 19 and 19 in your two boxes, or you could write minus 19 times minus 19, but I would suggest 19 is probably going to be the most common answer. So moving on to question 7, it says 3 groups of people, A, B and C, have taken their driving test. So for 7, it says here is some information about the number of tests taken by people in A, and we've got a pictogram where a full tyre or a circle is represented by 4 people. So here is information about the number of tests taken by people in B, and the question is asking us to complete the pictogram for B. So we just have both of them on screen. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to write down the totals of the ones for A. So that's 12, that's going to be 16, and that's going to be 6. So reading the information for one test, it says half the number of A have taken one test. So half of 12 is 6. So that's going to be 1 full circle and a half circle. Looks something like that. Then for 2 tests, it says 4 fewer than A. So that's going to be 12. So that's going to be 3 circles. And then it says 10 more for 3 tests, 10 more than A. So 6 plus 10 is 16. So that's going to be 4 circles. And there we go. So moving on to 7b, it says in group C there are 25 people. 17 of these people have passed a test. One person is picked at random from C. Work out the probability that the person did not pass the test. So if 17 passed the test, and there are 25 people, then that means 8 did not pass. So then the probability is going to be 8 out of 25. So I just need to write that just there. Then for question 8, it says work out the value of 3r plus 4t when r equals 13 and t equals minus 2. So for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write in brackets. So I've got 3 times 13 plus 4 times minus 2, and again you can either work this out in your head mentally or you can use your calculator, but that's the calculation you should have. So it's going to be 39 minus 8, which is 31. Again, if you went straight into a calculator, that's fine, but just be mindful of the negative 2. So let me just get the calculator back up and I'll show you how you enter this in. So for the first one, we've got 3 times 13, and again always recommend putting these in brackets. Then we've got plus, and then we've got 4 multiplied by minus 2, close bracket, press equals. As you can see, we get the same answer. Moving on to question 9, it says Hamish has saved 295 coins. Each one is a 20p coin. He gives an equal number of the 20p coins to each of his 8 grandchildren, and he gives them as many coins as possible. How much in pounds does he have left? So let's have a look. So first things what we want to do is we want to see how many 20p coins there are going to be. Well, we know that there are 295, so we need to do 295 divided by 8, which gives us an answer. And again, if I just go for the calculator on this, divided by 8, and it should give me a decimal number, which it does. So it's 36.875. Now we want to round down because we can't round up. So then each grandchild gets 36 20p coins. So then if we then do 36 times 8, then that's going to give us an answer of 288. So a total of 288 coins are given out, leaving, and then if I then do 295 take away 288, that gives me an answer of 7 coins, and 7 times 20p is going to give me an answer of £1.40. So how much money does the granddad have left? Well, that's going to be £1.40. Then moving on to question 10, it says here are two sets of numbers and we've got set A and set B. One number from set A is swapped with one number from set B. The total number of numbers in each set is now the same. Which two numbers were swapped? So for this, what we need to do is basically add all the numbers up, in which if I add 2 plus 12 plus 13 plus 27, we get an answer of 54. And if I add the numbers in set B, we get 62. So if I then do 54 plus 62, which gives me 116, I divide that by 2 and I get an answer of 58. So I want each of these to equal 58 for them both to be the same. So what I'm looking for is which two numbers from set A and set B have a difference of 4. Well, the two numbers are going to be 12 and 16. Then moving on to question 11. Let me just zoom in so we can see that a little bit better on the screen. So it says rearrange M equals P minus 5 to make P the subject. So we want P equals. So what we need to do is take the 5 over to the other side. So we get P equals M plus 5, which is our second option. Moving on to question 12, it says here is a distance time graph for a car between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. And for 12.8 it says work out the total time that the car is not moving between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. Now where it's not moving is basically where it is a horizontal line. So the question is looking for time. So it's this time here and this time here. So this time here is half an hour, so that's 30 minutes. And this time here is 15 minutes. And so 30 minutes plus 15 minutes is 45 minutes. Now alternately you could write it in hours, so it's going to be 0.75 hours. So any of those two answers would be absolutely fine. If you really want to go into seconds, you could do. Just multiply 45 by 16, you'll get it in seconds. It then says work out the total distance the car travels between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. So in terms of the distance, that's where we've got diagonal length. So here, this first line here, that's going to be 29. Then this bit here is going to be 4. And then this length bit here, this diagonal, is going to be 25. So then all we need to do is just add 29 plus 4 plus 25. So let's just show working out there, which is going to give us an answer of 29 plus 29, which is 58. Now moving on to question 13, it says A and B are points on a circle. C is the center of the circle, and it says tick one box for each correct statement. So here it says that line AB is a tangent to the circle. Well, the definition of a tangent is a line outside the circle that only touches it once, so that cannot be true. It then says that AC is an arc of the circle. Well, it isn't, because this length here is the arc, and so is the external or the major arc, so that cannot be true. Line ABC is an equilateral triangle. Well, that could be true, because we definitely know that these two lengths here are the same because they're both the radius of the circle. So AB could be the same, but it also might not be, so that's why that one might be true. Then continuing on to question 14, it says to travel to a festival, a group of people will hire a minibus. This is the formula that has all the costs in pounds, and it says with 12 people in the group, the cost of the minibus is £567. Work out the cost per person. So what we need to do here is just use this information. So we know the number of people is 12, the total cost is 567. So this number here is the cost of the minibus, and this number here is going to be 12. So all I need to do is just substitute those numbers in. So I've got 165 plus 567 all divided by 12. And again, if I type that straight into my calculator, so 165 plus 567 divided by 12 gives me an answer of £61. So then moving on to 14b, it says with 15 people in the group, they hire a different minibus. The cost per person is £50. Work out the cost of this minibus. So for this, what we need to do is now substitute different numbers into this. So we know that the total cost is 50. And that equals, and it's going to be 165 plus what we don't know. So I'm just going to call that x. And we know that the number of people is 15. So what we need to do is work this out as a linear equation. So the first thing I'm going to do is do 50 multiplied by 15, and that's going to equal 165 plus x, which is what we don't know. Now 50 times 15 is 750. And then to work out x, all I then need to do is take the 165 over to the other side by taking it away. So 750 minus 165 gives me an answer of 585. Now looking at question 15, it says the sketch shows the line y equals x. Line A is vertical, line B is horizontal. The point 35 lies on both A and B, and the question is asking us to work out the coordinates of P and Q. Now if we use the coordinate 35, then we know that this point here is going to be 3 and this point here is going to be 5. Now for this, what we then need to do is we can then work out what P is. As P is on the x-axis, it's going to have a y-coordinate of 0, so P is going to be at 3, 0. Then for Q, well, we know that the y-coordinate is 5, so therefore if we just substitute that into the equation, we know that x is going to equal 5, y is going to equal 5, so therefore Q is going to be at 5, 5. Moving on to question 16, it says some people were asked for the main way of the way they listen to music. The pie chart is drawn to represent their answers, and the question for A is asking us to work out the size of angle X. So if we write this equation as a equation, we know that all of the angles need to add up to 360 because they're angles in a circle. So what I've got is X plus 162 plus 40 plus 90 equals 360. Now if I just neaten that up, I get 2x plus, and then 162 plus 40 plus 90, which is 292, equals 360. Take this over to the other side, so I get 2x equals 360 minus 292, which is 68. Divide both sides by 2 and we get 34. So the angle for X is going to be 34 degrees. Moving on to 16b, it says 135 people said computer. How many people said phone? Well, for computer, if we just go back to the pie chart, we've got 90 degrees, so that's a quarter. So 1/4 equals 135. So then from this, we want to work out what 162 is. So if 90 degrees is 135 degrees, then 1 degree is going to be 135 divided by 90, and 162 degrees is going to be 135 over 90 multiplied by 162. Now let me just show you how to make sure you do this correctly on a calculator, because you need to make sure that it looks exactly how it's written. So 135 over 90, and then scroll across, multiplied by 162 equals, and it's going to be 243. Then moving on to question 17, it says complete the statement 10 to the power 8 is how many million? So 10 to the power 8, well, if I don't know if this will work on a calculator. Don't think it will, but we'll give it a go. Yes, it does. So here we've got 10 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 zeros. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And if we put a little dash next to every 3 zeros, so that's going to be 100 million. Moving on to question 18, it says that a football team plays 2 matches, and for A it says for the first match 40,000 tickets are sold. Assume that each ticket costs £38.50. Work out the total amount of money from ticket sales for the match. So all we need to do here is just multiply 40,000 by £38.50. And again, if I type that straight into my calculator, let's just work that out. So we've got 40,000 multiplied by 38.5 equals, and we get 1.4 million. Let me just double check to make sure I've got the correct number of zeros, 4 zeros, yeah. Then for 18B, it says, in fact, for this match, some of the tickets cost less than £38.50 and some tickets cost more than £38.50. What does this mean about the total amount of money from the ticket sales for this match? And it says it will be more or the same or less, or is impossible to tell. And the one that you want to tick is going to be impossible to tell. And the reason for that is because although tickets are more or less, you don't know how many, whether they've sold more tickets that were more than £38, in which then the total will be worth more, or they sold less. So it's really difficult to tell. So the one that you want to tick is the last option. Then for C, it says for the second match, the number of tickets sold increases from 40,000 to 55,000. Is the increase in tickets sold more than 35%? So let's have a look. So first thing we want to do is the total income, which is going to be 55,000 multiplied by £38.50. And if I type that into my calculator, we get an answer of 2117500. Now what we want to do is just work out the percentage of how much more that is. So to work out the percentage change, the formula we use is the difference divided by the original multiplied by 100. So this is the formula that I'm going to be using. So the difference is 2117500 minus, and it was 154 with 4 zeros. So if I just work that out, minus 154, so that gives me a difference of 577500. So then using the formula, I get 577500 divided by the original amount, which is 1540000, multiply that by 100, and let me just type that into my calculator. And I get an answer of 37.5%. So is the increase in sales more than 35%? The answer is yes. So then moving on to question 19, it says on a train there are between 60 and 70 people. The ratio of adults to children is 5 to 4. Work out the total number of people on the train. Now for this particular question, there's no sharing ratios that we need to do, but basically what we know is that we've got 9 parts. So what I then need to do is, because we can't have decimal number of people, we need to find a whole number. So what we're looking for is a multiple of 9 between 60 and 70. So if you go through the 9 times table, which of those numbers is between 60 and 70? Well, the answer is going to be 63. So then moving on to question 20, it says the composite bar chart shows information about the percentage of drinks sold by a cafe in 2017 and 2019. And for part A, it says in 2017, the cafe sold a total of 24,000 drinks. How many more teas than coffees were sold? So in 2007, we've got 42%, and light grey is coffee, and we've got a percentage of 90 take away 42, so 90 take away 42 gives me an answer of 48. So we've got 48% were teas. Let me just double make sure, yep, were tea. So what we then need to do is we need to work out what 42% of 24,000 is, and we then need to work out what 48% of 24,000 is as well. So then again, using decimal multipliers or however you work out percentages, I'm going to use decimal multipliers. So I've got 0.72 multiplied by 24,000 gives me an answer of 10,080. Then if I then do the same to work out the t's, so that's going to be 0.48 multiplied by 24,000, and I've got extra with a 0 and press equals, and we get 1152.0. So all I need to do is just work out the difference between these two numbers. So 11520 minus 10,080, and again just going straight onto the calculator for this, I get an answer of 1440. Then moving on to question 20b, it says, were more coffee sold at the cafe in 2019 to 2007? So looking at this, we can see that it's just the percentages that are sold. So although in 2007 this here is 42%, and here we've got 50%. So although we've got a higher percentage, the problem with this is we don't know how many coffees were actually sold in 2019. We do know how many were sold in 2007, so therefore we were allowed to work out, or we could work out, how many actual physical coffees were sold. Whereas for 2019, we don't know what the total is. So if the total was, let's say, 20,000, then that's obviously going to be slightly less. So it's really important that we don't make the assumption that it is, although the percentages are going to be the same, that the totals are going to be the same. So the one that we need to tick is that we cannot tell, and the reason for this is because we don't know how many drinks were sold in 2019 in total. And there we go. So moving on to question 21a, it says k is a whole number between 40 and 50, and it says the cube root of k is 3 to the nearest whole number. Work out the largest possible value of k. Now for this, what I would strongly recommend that you do is going to be trial and error. So because we know it's between 40 and 50, it means that it's going to be exclusive of those numbers. So we start off with 41. So then if I then do the cube root of 41, and I type that into my calculator, so shift cube root of 41, I get an answer of 3.44. I then do the cube root of 42, and again, if you're not sure about how to do the cube root, let's do it on screen. So my cube root is the shift of that, it should get a little 3, type in 42 this time, press equals, and I get 3.47. And the cube root of 43, so I'm looking for the biggest number that just takes it over 3.5. So the cube root of 43 is 3.503. So then that means that the biggest number that k can be is going to be 42. Moving on to question 21b, it says Faye tries to solve x squared equals 100. She says the only possible value of x is 10. Give a reason why she is not correct. And the reason you need to write here is that x could be minus 10. Then moving on to question 22b, it says here is a solid cube, and it says circle the expression for the total surface area in centimetre square. Now the total surface area is the area of all the 6 faces. So here one face is going to be 3a times 3a, which is 9a squared, and then we've got 6 faces, so it's going to be 9a squared times 6. 9 times 6 is 54, and then we've got 54a squared, so the correct answer is going to be our 4th option. Moving on to question 23, it says the equation of the line is y equals 3x minus 6. Circle the coordinates of the y-intercept. Well, the y-intercept is minus 6. So that's going to be minus 6, and the x-coordinate is always 0 on the y-intercept, so the correct answer is going to be our first option. Moving on to question 23, it says the equation of the line is y equals 3x minus 6. Circle the coordinates of the y-intercept. Well, the y-intercept is minus 6, so the coordinate I'm looking for is 0 minus 6, which is our first option. Moving on to question 24.8, says work out 2.8 to the power of 4 plus the square root of 158.76. Give your answer as a decimal. So for this I need to get up my calculator again, and all I'm going to do is just type that in. So I've got 2.8 to the power of 4. Not sure why it's gone into that mode, so let me just set that up properly. So 2.8 to the power of 4, and then plus the square root of 158.76, pressing equals as a decimal, so it's 74.0656. So 74.056, and just get the number back up again. Oh, I missed that, got that completely wrong. I missed that, put the 6 just there. So let me just write that again. 656, and again just double check to make sure that I have written that correctly. Yes, I have. So the next question then says work out, and then we've got with this to work out. So again, I can go straight onto the calculator and use standard form. So first of all, I've got fraction, and then all I then want to do is just enter the values. Now you have got a standard form button, so I can use that, and then again don't need to enter the power, and I can just do 4.2, press the standard form button, press 9, press equals, and the answer is 145,000. Now the question is asking me to give my answer in standard form, so that's going to be 1.45 times 10, and then I'm moving the decimal point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places, so the answer then is going to be 1.45 times 10 to the power of 5. For question 25a, it says that a tank contains 40 litres of water. The water leaks out of the tank at a rate of 1.2 litres per minute. The leak is stopped after 20 minutes. Show that when the leak is stopped, the tank contains 16 litres of water. Well, for this, what we need to do, so if we look at the water that's leaked, well, that's going to be 1.2 for 20 minutes, so it's going to be 1.2 times 20. So 1.2 times 20 is 24. And then to work out how many litres is left is then going to be 40 take away 24, which gives us 16 litres. Then for question 25b, it says the tank is refilled with water from a tap. The graph shows the amount of water in the tank after the leak has stopped. And it says complete this report by writing a number for each space. So let's just zoom out so we can see both the question and the graph. And let's go back to that question. There we go. And so it says after how many minutes is the leak stopped? Well, that's going to be, is there. And so each little box there represents half a minute. And so that's going to be 3 minutes. And it says the rate at which the tank refills. So then what we then need to do is work out the rate. So at this point, in terms of time, well, the litres that's been filled is going to be 40 take away 16, which is 24 litres. And the time difference is from 3 minutes to 15 minutes. So 15 take away 3 is going to give me 12 minutes. So 24 divided by 12 is 2, so it's going to be 12 litres per minute. So then the number I need to write there is going to be 2. Moving on to question 26, it says here is a triangle and use Pythagoras' theorem to work out y. So again, the first thing you want to do when working with Pythagoras' theorem is label the sides. So C is always the longest side, or the side that's opposite the 90-degree angle or right angle, and the other two sides are A and B. So writing down Pythagoras' theorem, I get a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So then substituting numbers in, I get y squared plus 9 squared equals 14 squared. So y squared plus 81 equals 196. So y squared equals 196 minus 81. And so y squared equals, and again just typing that into my calculator, I get an answer of 115. So y equals the square root of 115, giving me an answer. And it wants me to write it as a decimal. And so the answer is going to be 10.7238059. Now the question doesn't actually specify any rounding, so you could leave your answer like this, or you could correctly round it, but if you have rounded it, then just make sure that you are stating what you have rounded it to. So I'm going to leave the answer as 10.7. Now if you were confused and not so great with your rounding, then I would strongly recommend you just copy the answer from your calculator, because it doesn't specify how they want you to round it. Moving on to question 27, it says the length of this rectangle is 6 times the width. Two of these rectangles are joined with no overlap to make the L shape. The perimeter of this L shape is 98.8. Work out the value of the perimeter of one of the rectangles. So let's first of all work this out. So we've got x, this long length is going to be 6x, this length here is going to be 6x. Now this length here is going to be 6x take away x, which is 5x, and this length here is 6x plus another x. So to work out the perimeter, all I've got to do is add up all the sides. So here I've got x plus 6x plus 5x plus x plus 6x plus x plus 6x. And again, if I just simply add all of those numbers up, I get an answer of 26. Now it says that the perimeter of the shape is 98.8, so 26x equals 98.8. So x is going to equal 98.8 divided by 26. So x is going to equal, and again just typing that into my calculator, it's going to equal 3.8 centimeters. Now once I've got that, the question is then asking to work out the perimeter of the rectangle. So it's this rectangle here. So then the perimeter is how many x's? Well, that's 14x. Now we know that x is 3.8, so the perimeter is going to be 3.8 multiplied by 14, and if I just type that into my calculator, I get an answer of 53.2 centimeters. And so the answer I need to put at the bottom here is 53.2. Moving on to our last question, it says written as a product of their primes, we've got 12,600 and 14,112, and the question is asking us to work out the highest common factor of these two numbers. Give your answer as an integer. Now there are several ways in which you can do this, and it all depends on how you've been taught. Now one way you could do using the product of their primes, another way is using a Venn diagram. Now again, I'll show you both ways. So if I just write method 1, and this is just using the product of their primes as written, because it's only worth 2 marks. So what you want to do here is take out the common numbers, taking out using the smallest power of each of those numbers. So here the HCF, so looking, they both got 2's, so I'm going to take the smallest power, which is 2 to the power of 3. They've both got 3's, and the smallest power of 3 is 3 squared, so I'm going to multiply that by 3 squared. Now they haven't both got a 5, so I'm not going to use that, but they have both got 7's, and the lowest power of 7 is 1. So then if I just type that all into my calculator, so 2 to the power of 3 multiplied by 3 to the power of 2 multiplied by 7, I get an answer of 504. So the correct answer is 504. Now if I wanted to use a Venn diagram, let me just do that here and draw my 2 circles, and this is 1 2 6 0 0. This circle here is 1 4 1 1 2, and again if I just write these out, so 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3 times 5 times 5 times 7, and this is going to be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3 times 7 times 7. So in terms of the common ones, we've got 3. So right, 1 2 3. Then the common of the 3's, I've got 2 of those, and I've got a 7. And then completing this, I've got another 3. No, I haven't. I've got 2 5's. Oh, I don't know where that 5 has kind of gone off. So let me just do that a little bit neater. So 5 should be there. And for the 14,112, I've got 2 extra 2s and I've got an extra 7. So there's my completed Venn diagram. And the highest common factor are these numbers here. And again, if I multiply them all out, I get 504 as my final answer. And that concludes the end of this particular paper.